Welcome back, everyone, to episode 53 of the Minot Business Podcast, presented by Bennett Creative Media. I'm your host, Easton Bennett, and on the show today, we have Ryan Ackerman. Ryan, how's it going?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem at all. Before we get started, if you have not already, please rate and review the show. If you could take 5 seconds to leave us a rating and review, it really helps spread the word to new audiences and attract new guests for you guys each week. All right, let's dive right into it. For the people that don't know, what do you do? Ryan Ackerman, if they've never met you, what's your thing?
Well, my background is in engineering. I have a degree in civil engineering. I was one of 4 partners that founded Ackerman Estvold back in 2003. So we've been in operation for almost 20 years. Our 20th anniversary is coming up this fall, which will be kind of fun. And then also my wife, Jessica, and I have another company called Aksal Group where we focus on downtown redevelopment projects.
Okay, so we're going to dive into all of that in detail a little bit in the show. I want to start with your business come up. So you obviously went to school for engineering. Was business always a thing that you thought you wanted to be in one day, or did you just go into engineering thinking I'm going to be an engineer?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. So after I graduated from NDSU and got my degree in engineering, I got married.
Okay.
And Jess and I moved to Denver, Colorado. And we had this kind of romantic expectation that we're going to live in, kind of a mountain community and enjoy that setting.
Okay.
Get a bunch of experience and then make our way back to North Dakota at some point. We had this magical number of 7 years in our mind when we did this. But
why'd you think 7? Just because?
Just because. I mean, it was arbitrary, but it was the number that we said, maybe in 7 years we'll make it back. Well, actually we were there for less than a year. And
really?
An opportunity came up right here in Minot, and we made the choice to come back because that was the right time. That was the right time for us. And we also learned, kind of through our experiences out there that we learned what we really appreciated about this place.
Okay.
About Minot and about being close to family and being able to get away from people. We had that ability here, whereas in Denver, while you're in the mountains or close to the mountains, when you want to go out into the mountains, you've got the same idea as 500,000 other people on every given weekend. So you're still in the rat race no matter what. So we chose to move back here and started our business.
So was the opportunity Ackerman Estvold then?
It was. So I'd worked with previously for my dad as a surveyor. My dad's got a separate company called Ackerman Surveying.
Okay.
And I started working for him when I was 14 years old. And through that process, got to know a lot of people. One of those people was a guy named Alan Estvold.
Okay.
So Alan worked for a different engineering company at the time, and I got this call in the middle of summer 2003, and he said, "Hey kid, I'm going to quit my job at the place that he was working at the time, and I'm going to start a company, and I need somebody to help build it, and I need somebody to help, not to help, but to buy me out in 10 years when I decide to retire. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, let's go. Let's do this." So.
Was there any thought process in that? Like you were nervous, like, how am I going to do this? Or were you just gung ho, let's do it right away?
I was 22 and change at the time.
Yep.
So I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I didn't have any assets. I didn't have anything to lose really, except for the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I basically said, this is a pretty good opportunity. Talked to Jess for about 15 seconds about it, and she's like, "Yeah, let's go."
Yeah.
So, that was a decision that we made, and it's been a good one for us.
Okay, so you went into that partnership thinking like he pretty much had the plan already set up in place, and then just needed someone to kind of fill that role.
So the one thing that Alan had was he had his registration. So in order to operate as an engineering outfit, you have to have your professional credentials. Well, you can't get those until you're out of school and working under another engineer. In this case, for a period of 4 years, and you write an exam, and once you pass, then you can practice professionally. Well, I didn't have that credential at the time. Alan did.
Okay.
In addition, when we're starting a business like a professional services firm, you need to have somebody that has an eye on the financials and an eye on sales. And Alan was really good at those things.
Okay.
And where my skill set was in plan production and being a technical
actual engineer.
Yeah, being an engineer.
Okay.
So I'm really good at that.
Yeah.
So, we had that kind of symbiotic relationship between the two of us. And then we had, 2 more partners that joined the mix as well, right when we started. And yeah, like I said, it's been an interesting experience. Been in it for 20 years now, and it feels good to come up against that milestone here this fall.
Yeah. So did you learn then the sales and marketing side from him, or did you have a little bit of a business background learning from your dad? Or
The sales and marketing side, I think that came to me a little bit more naturally. I definitely have a different approach than what Mr. Estvold had. But it's one of those things that you learn kind of in the trenches. At least that's the way it was for me. I mean, going through engineering school and things like that. I mean,
yeah.
business, marketing, all this stuff, you don't get taught any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's all on the job, type training or experiential type training that you get.
I always say experience is the best teacher, because it's hard to learn, especially business. You can go to business school. I didn't go to business school personally, but you kind of get the basics, and then you got to learn everything else through doing. So when those other two partners came in, so there's a total of 4 of you?
Correct. When we first started, there were 4 of us.
Okay. So how did it, I've never ran a business with a partner before. What's it like running a business with a partner? Did you have any qualms at the beginning of how's it going to work with a partner?
In my opinion, if you have a good partnership, you will have consistent disagreement, but it's always cordial and it's always professional.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, you need to collaborate with your partners to basically, so you take the 4 of us, right? So you add up 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. Somehow you got to get to 6.
Yeah.
Okay. And the way that you do that is through that collaboration and basically leveraging everybody's strengths, make sure that you understand everybody's perspectives with regard to an issue, and then ultimately formulate and execute a plan that everybody is behind. And then that's how you grow a business that forms through a partnership.
Do you think it's easier to grow a business faster if you do have partners because you're all kind of molding minds, or are there some hurdles you kind of have to work through?
Well, I think it depends on the situation. In our case, it was the way to go, because when we first started, I did not have the business development marketing type background and experience. Well, you have to sell something before you can do it in our particular industry. And Alan was good at the sales. I was good at the doing. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, again, that symbiotic thing really comes into play, but, I don't think that Alan could have done it alone. I don't think I could have done it alone. In fact, I know I couldn't have done it alone. Yeah. So, I think we found the right skill sets to, build a pretty good team, and we've kind of used that same model moving forward. Now we've got we've had a couple of partners that have retired. Okay. And they're out of the picture. And we have new partners that have come into the picture. So currently we have, there's 11 partners in Ackerman Estvold.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Pretty broad-based ownership group, and
so
a lot of perspectives.
Yeah. So that's probably, so is that kind of like the board then kind of, or are they just full blown partners, everyone equal share? How does that work?
No. So people have different share amounts that they own by, percentages or things like that. But each person they bring their own voice, they bring their own perspectives and experience into our executive meetings that we have every couple of weeks. A bunch of people sitting around the table arguing about stuff or whatever. But again, it's done in a very collaborative, safe manner.
Cordial,
cordial. And we expect disagreement. We do, because
can't have 11 people on the same train.
No, you can't. It gets dangerous when you build yourself an echo chamber, right? Because you get blinders built up alongside you, and you don't necessarily have an indication of the things that can derail your progress. Okay. Whereas if you take those blinders off, open up perspectives, get different ideas, it gives you a more broad-based strategy to try and execute.
That's one thing I've noticed when running my business by myself. It's sometimes I feel like I'm getting too involved in it where I can't see it from a third-party point of view. So I have people to bounce ideas off of and see if I'm crazy or not. Going back to the beginning of Ackerman Estvold then, so what did the beginning look like? There's obviously 4 original partners. Yep. How many employees did you guys have? Did you start really small? What did that look like?
So we had 4 partners, 3 of which were employees. So there were three working partners. I was one of those 3. And then we basically had an outside investor. Okay. That basically had the cash to come up with our equity to secure a loan through the SBA that we used to basically pay our salaries for, 6 months or whatever it was.
Yeah. So how does that work then? Because I've never had to do the financial side of things. What would be some advice that you'd give to people that are maybe wanting to start a business or going into this? How do they find these kinds of people?
Well, I think you need to take a look at understand the business that you're trying to get into, understand is it capital intensive?
Okay.
In our case, what we're really selling at the end of the day is our expertise
Mm-hmm.
and the time that it takes for us to work on a project. So that really isn't necessarily capital.
It's more so like a
intensive.
consulting side.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So for us, I mean, the seed capital that we needed to get started was basically just enough operating cash to get us through when we opened the doors to when we first expected to get payments from our clients.
Yeah.
So that we could actually pay our salaries using
Client
revenues
money,
instead of
yeah.
loan money. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
How long did it take to get that first client then? Because you said it was like that 6-month window.
Yeah,
maybe.
it took probably took about a month.
Okay.
It took about a month. Thankfully we had some relationships in place prior to making the switch, if you will.
Yeah.
And so we were able to utilize those relationships to be able to work.
Yeah.
Otherwise we'd sit there and twiddle our thumbs. I mean, in the business that we're in on the Ackerman Estvold side, you can't just wait for the phone to ring.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just wait for somebody to come to you and say, hey,
We need this thing. Yeah.
I need some engineering.
Yeah.
Right?
So how does that work then? I suppose the sales process, do you kind of just pitch ideas to people, or how do these projects come about?
So it's a mix, right? So in some cases we will go out and, just pay visits to prospective clients.
Okay.
Maybe it's a developer, maybe it's a small city, or maybe it's a large city, or maybe
Yeah.
it's an agency at the state, or whatever. I mean, we work for private, we work for public. We kind of have a pretty diverse mix of clientele. So
Yeah.
step one is just trying to meet these people
Mhm.
and trying to let them know what it is that we do and the services that we offer, and maybe how we can provide value to their project, to their vision, whatever. But it takes time to develop those relationships. I mean, it's not hey, I'm going to grab a coffee with you, Easton, and then after that, you're gonna hire me,
okay,
right?
build this $40 million building.
Right. Yeah. You're gonna hire me, right?
Yeah.
After I bought you a coffee or something like that.
So do you think it boils down to a lot of the relationships then?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge part of how we develop our business. It's through relationships. It's through reputation.
Yeah.
I mean, when you consider like our current book of business, a vast majority of our work is actually repeat work from repeat customers and clients. So what that tells us from a business development and marketing standpoint is we better do a really good job.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's one thing when I was starting, I didn't know how to, I was going in cold turkey, didn't know how to meet these people. Right. And obviously this podcast is one of the ways that to meet individuals in the Minot community. But do you have any advice for the people that are getting started in business, maybe college graduates or high school graduates, whatever it is? How can they start getting in these rooms with these influential people?
Well, I think step number one is just to be bold, right? I think by and large, people like interacting with other people. So if you have a prospective client or customer, reach out to them.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not as young as you and as digitally oriented as you, but I'll tell you from my own personal perspective, I really dislike email.
Yeah.
And not from the communication standpoint, one-to-one. I'm working with you on a project. You can email me. That's great.
Yeah.
But if you want to reach out to me saying, I've really got a product that you should be interested in.
Yeah.
And that comes through an email.
Because you get 1,000 of those.
Yes. And I'm immediately going to trash that.
Yeah.
I don't have the time to screen through all that.
How many, I get so many people like voiceover artists like, hey, I'm Billy Bob Joe, and I saw your video with this company and I'd love to do some voiceover work for you. I'm like, well, I never do voiceovers. And you could tell that if you watch some of the videos, there's no voiceovers ever in it. So yeah, it's kind of that personal relationship, going and meeting these people, actually shaking hands.
Yes. Yep. I think that's step one. And then, step two is patience. I mean, and continued touch points with people. I mean, a trusting relationship is not built in one meeting.
One coffee meeting.
It's not built. I mean, we can exchange pleasantries and we can get to know one another, but at the end of the day, you're 10 meetings in typically before you have enough trust in me to say, you know what, when I've got my engineering or architecture project that comes up next,
I'll give you guys a call.
Yeah.
That's one thing I didn't realize is the amount of jobs or projects that I've gotten because of a relationship that I made 2 or 3 years ago, where it'll come up and be like, hey, we're doing this thing now. You want to do this? I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, I've totally, you just see them in passing saying hi, you shoot them a birthday text, whatever it might be.
Right.
Those are the things that, like you said, it's not just one coffee shop meeting. We are going to take a second to hear from this week's sponsor, Midco. Is your business moving up and to the right? Put Midco's business technology to work for you so you never have a slow day at the office. From premium internet and phone plans to custom private networking and advertising, they have a solution for every type of business, large or small. Get paired with an account representative to create your suite of services and make the switch with ease with dedicated business client fulfillment and support teams. No data caps, flexible contracts with month-to-month or long-term options, built-in DDoS protection, and more. Explore services and request a free consultation at midco.com/business today. I've been a Midco user ever since I started my business 4.5 years ago, I think now. So if you guys are looking to check out the services they offer, go to midco.com/business today. All right, Ryan. So let's get back into the questions now. We talked about the beginning of the company when, you're kind of boots on the ground. When did it come to a point when you realized, okay, we got to scale, we're getting bigger? Was that, 2 years in, 1 year in, 6 months in?
It was probably 6 months in, and you don't scale from 4 to 30,
Yeah.
right? In our case, I mean, we grew pretty organically, and quite frankly, that's been the type of growth for us that's been sustainable and successful, and most successful in the long run. Where we getting busy, so we advertise, we hire.
Yeah.
And over time, we've developed an internship program within Ackerman Estvold that basically creates a pipeline for younger people that are interested in engineering and architecture, where they can come in, get some experience with us, in the summer months or whatever. And at the end, if there's a two-way fit between them and us and them, then hopefully they come on board after they graduate.
When did that come about?
We started that fairly early on, probably the second year that we were in business. Basically said that, hey, we need to staff some of these seasonal efforts that we have going on. We're typically more busy in the summertime than in the wintertime, just because of the construction cycle.
Yeah.
So we need to staff some of these efforts, get some people on the ground to observe construction, document what's happening, things like that. And it's a great experience opportunity for younger people that are interested in the industry. So try and hire a couple of young folks to come in and learn the ropes, learn the type of business that we do, learn the industry, and over time, hopefully they consider us as an employer basically when they graduate. So
yeah, because that's one thing I'm kind of going through right now. I'm looking to hire some full-time editors, and it's in that stage of, do you hire before you need it, so you have time to train them, make sure everything's in place? Because I've always heard people say, don't hire when you're the busiest, because then it's going to be a mess. Do you have any advice on that?
Well, I would say from our experience in the last 3-4 years has been to basically, if we encounter a good person that's technically skilled, that can add value to our organization, we'll hire them whether we have an opening
or not,
advertised or not.
Yeah.
Because workforce has by far been the limiting factor for our growth. We can't hire enough quality people.
Has that been in the last 3-4 years?
Yeah, probably the last 3-4 years. And that ebbs and flows, right? So at one point, let's say 2010 or so, context here locally was we were going through the oil boom, right?
Yeah.
So we had some pretty significant things going on locally, but nationally was the housing crisis.
Oh yeah.
And mass layoffs, especially in the engineering industry.
That was right after 2008 boom, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. After that,
or not boom, but
after that, the housing disaster nationally or whatever. So there were a number of people that looked at North Dakota as an opportunity and ended up, working with us or whatever. So, yeah.
Okay. So was that, you hit these big moments. Obviously the oil boom was one of them, housing crash, COVID, obviously something a few years ago. Yeah. How do you look at those moments? How do you capitalize on them rather than, some businesses might be thinking, oh, this is bad, but you guys obviously capitalize on it, taking advantage of the people coming to North Dakota.
Yeah. I don't know that it's so much capitalizing on every single moment, but, because there are opportunities that you try and set yourself up strategically to capitalize upon, but you also have to set yourself up to be resilient to certain threats, right?
Yeah.
COVID, I didn't see that one coming.
No, I don't think anyone did.
And when you have, there were certain teams or disciplines within our business that that did fine. They sustained through that, but there were other teams that they had, let's say, 9 months worth of backlog, which is work to do, which is in our industry is a lot. Like these guys were really busy, really healthy financially, like doing well, and it disappeared like in an instant.
Snap of a finger.
So we didn't see that one coming, right? But where we were set up strategically to be able to handle that is we're a fairly fiscally conservative organization, so we don't have much by the way of debt.
Okay.
And we keep cash in the bank to be able to weather those type of storms, right? So we were able to weather those type of storms because prior to that, our struggle was, building that team, building the workforce. So we put a ton of energy and money into building up, a high quality team, and we got it. And we had healthy backlog and we had to work. And then COVID came and it was threatening to wipe that whole thing out because they had nothing to do.
Yeah.
And this is a highly skilled, highly trained team, which means it's very expensive, right?
Yeah.
But thankfully, we're conservative enough on the financial side that we had money in the bank to basically just keep on paying people, even if they're twiddling thumbs or, working on standards or they did a lot of business development type work at that time because it was like, well, you got nothing to do. Why don't you go meet some people and see if you can,
And it's good that you guys were looking in advance. Not that you were like, hey, some crazy disaster is going to happen, but that you were smart enough fiscally to weather those storms. Yeah. So talking about the growth a little bit more now, you guys have offices in 3, 4, 5 different places, right?
We have 4 different offices. We have our headquarters office in Minot. We have an office in Williston, an office in Fargo, and we have an office in Boise, Idaho.
So when did you know that expansion into those areas was prevalent and something you needed to do? Did it just come from a lot of work in that area, or how does that work?
Well, so for us, few different paths led to these to each office. Our office in Williston actually came through a merger with 2 companies out there. One was called Ameritech Engineering Corporation, and the second was called ABC Building Systems, was an architecture group. So we actually merged, and that basically cemented our presence in the Williston market.
Okay.
In Fargo, we opened an office there primarily because one of our principals that was working in our Minot office needed to make a change for personal reasons. His wife wanted to move to Fargo, so he moved to Fargo, and we said, okay, well let's start an office in Fargo.
Yeah.
And for our Boise location, we had a gentleman that was working for us in Minot like 2012 through 2015 or so. His wife said, we're going back to either California or to Idaho.
Yeah.
Cause he was a transplant coming from the housing crisis that came to work for us. And so he actually moved, and he worked for a different firm and actually a city out there for a stretch or whatever, but we maintained contact, and we said, hey, you're getting bored out there. Just, this guy is a really fantastic business development guy.
Yeah.
Okay. He was kind of being, shoehorned into doing just technical work, which
Things
he hates.
didn't want to do. Yeah.
It's the stuff that I love, but it's the stuff that he hates. Right. Well, so his boss at the time wouldn't let him do any business development stuff, which is what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So we just maintained contact, and finally in a conversation, we're like, hey, like if you want to build a book of business of your own, we can set up the resources around you and behind you.
Yeah.
To punch out the technical aspects of this work.
Okay.
And we'll set you on a track toward, ownership within the company, and we'll set out financial goals and objectives. And if we can check all these boxes along the way, you've got your future pegged out for you. So he's a partner of ours now too. So,
which is pretty cool that, he had that opportunity. I assume he jumped on it right away.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Cause I was always wondering, the Idaho, that's like the outlier, right?
Right.
You got these places in North Dakota, and it's like, oh yeah, we're in Idaho too.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm always interested to see how people expand, because some people have asked me, they're like, oh, are you going to open? I work with a lot of Bismarck clients. You're going to open a Bismarck office? I was like, I work from my house in Minot right now, so I don't need a Bismarck office.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's interesting to see how people expand. So you guys played a critical role in the flood protection, right, here in Minot?
Correct.
So why do you care so much about that? I know you did a TEDx talk on it.
I did, yeah.
So why is that important to you?
So this is for me, this is a heavy topic, right? So in 2011, I was involved in the flood fighting stuff that was happening. I'd spent a lot of time in Minot, in some of the rural areas around Minot, and also in the city of Burlington. And in when we got kind of this call, I remember it vividly. It was on Father's Day in 2011 that there was a bunch of rain up in Canada.
Yeah.
That we needed to get ready for something. So we went to work, started building up levees, spent 4 or 5 days without sleeping, basically. And ultimately, in Burlington was where I was at this particular time. The water started to come over the levees and we had lost, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was in a fog. I came home to my wife in the middle of the night or whatever, and I hadn't seen any of the stuff that was on TV in terms of what was going on or whatever. So, it's I can't remember. It was probably Sean Sitma or Perry Olson or maybe Jim, whatever. But all this stuff coming through on high def, seeing the devastation in the neighborhood, all this kind of neighborhoods in Minot, my hometown, like I lost it. I bawled for hours.
Yeah.
As I watched all this stuff happening, and in kind of in the midst of that rupture in my personal life, I've never had more clarity about like what I needed to do next.
Like the future moving. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it was at that time that, I made a conscious decision that, I am going to be involved in making sure that this type of thing doesn't happen here again.
Yeah.
And no matter how long it takes, we're going to see it through. So,
because that was something that I remember at the time. I was, 11, 12 years old, and I wish I'd been older so I could remember it a little bit better. Obviously, I remember living at my grandma's house and the water being 4 feet up. I think this house was flooded too. The water was like 4 feet up. And the only thing I really remember is dropping a giant cinder block on my dad's floor upstairs, and he was pissed. You put a hole in my floor, and then it ended up flooding. So I was like, hey, good thing it flooded. So you don't have to fix it. You got to fix the whole flooring and not just that one mark. So the reason I asked that question, I want to pivot a little bit into the community now. Why do you think as a business owner that it's important to be involved in the community and give back to the community that you're running your business in?
Well, our community involvement isn't necessarily a business strategy more as it is a personal strategy. I and my wife, we love this place. We love Minot. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And we hope that someday our kids have the same outlook about this place. So for us, it's about being involved in community initiatives or, quite frankly, investment opportunities or whatever to try and move the needle, the quality of life needle within Minot to make this a better place, to make it the best place to live.
Yeah. Because that's what I'm, going into the future. You talked about your kids potentially loving Minot in the future when they're older. Transitioning a little bit now into the Aksal group, that's something that you do a lot of investing, downtown Minot and all these community projects. Is that what it is? Well, first of all, give me a rundown of what that is, that business.
Sure.
And then is that for, moving that quality of life so people can experience a better life in Minot?
Yeah. So for us, I guess a little bit of background on Aksal Group. Aksal Group is owned by Jessica, my wife, and myself. So it's us two. And we formed this about 5 years ago and decided that we would like to get involved in restoring the historic core of Minot.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have any interest in doing greenfield development or anything like that. We want to focus on historic redevelopment. Yeah. So we our first purchase was the Citizens Garage in downtown Minot, which it's a sketchy one.
Yep.
That's a pretty sketchy building. But through that, we developed a concept for redeveloping that. And then there were other visions that kind of came into play, including the building where Prairie Sky Breads is at, where High Third used to be. Those, one of them was listed, one was not. And I kind of had this vision of going, okay, we could buy both of these, connect them, and put a rooftop over the top of the other building. But we got to buy them both. So we kind of made a deal on one, and then approached the owner on the other and made a deal on that one. It's like, okay, well now it's go time. Like let's build this thing out. So we've got those properties, and then we've also purchased the adjacent historic Sioux Line Freight House.
Okay,
which is where Blum's butcher shop used to be, and there's an alley back there that we're working on a concept on called Citizens Alley. So the idea is to turn that space where when I was in grades 9 and 10 at Central Campus. That's where we used to park, smoke cigarettes, and get in fights.
Yep.
So,
you knew the people that were parking down there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the way it was, and it didn't change much in 20 years following that. Yeah. So
you had to be driving a truck to get back in that alley.
Right. So, we've got several concepts that we're executing basically, at the end of it all, I guess the hope is that we're creating spaces that create the opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
People that have visions, people that have, are looking for an opportunity to start a business in a cool space in the heart of our community. And I guess at the end of the day, we're just, trying to create the environment that keeps our kids here, or your kids or anybody's kids, right? It's that next generation of Minoters or people that are considering moving to Minot. Like we want to see this place flourish.
And those are the things that you guys have added specifically, the hockey rink this year in Citizens Alley. You have the parklet, is that what it's called?
Yep.
Outside of Prairie Sky Breads. And then I can't remember the curling game. Is it Crokinole?
Yeah, it's Croaky Curl. So it's a combination of a Canadian board game called Crokinole and curling. We did that 2 winters ago. Tried that one out, see if the community would get a kick out of that. There were a few people that liked it. They're mostly Canadians because they've tried this before. And they understand crokinole, so they understood the rules.
Yeah. But bringing things like that to Minot does help for, the people that are deciding if they want to move to Minot, and adding and moving that quality of life needle for sure. So the beginning of the Aksal group, were you guys pondering this idea for a while? When did it decide that, hey, let's maybe start this and try to start some redevelopment?
Well, our initial idea was to purchase this, quite frankly, purchase the Citizens Garage, and then I developed a concept for the south side of that to put a second story back on what used to be called the Parker Auditorium.
Okay. Like on top of the garage?
Yes. So on the south side, so the Citizens Garage is actually an L-shaped building. It's got an entrance on both First Street and First Avenue.
Okay.
The First Avenue side, like across from the Blue Rider, that used to have a second story on it, and it burned down in the 60s.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's the one with like the big garage door, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's and on top of that Parker Auditorium, I mean, there were some pretty historic figures that actually made appearances there. Louis Armstrong played a concert up there.
Really?
Yes. So I mean, like there. When like we immerse ourselves into the history of these places, it's really difficult to not get lost.
Yeah.
In some of this stuff. So, we've got these concepts, we've got the history to kind of back them up, and we're going to, execute them basically as we are able.
So is bringing the auditorium back something you guys are spitballing?
It's in a concept.
Okay.
It is in a concept. Don't know if it's the right concept yet.
Yeah.
But
the bones are there.
Yeah, the bones are there. I mean, that's the cool part. And that's actually why we bought that building to begin with, because that section of it is built like a tank.
Yeah.
It's built, it's all concrete and brick, and it's fantastic. There are other sections of it that are a little more sketchy, but there's definitely potential there.
Okay. So as far as some other cool projects, then you got the auditorium. Is there anything else you can tease on the show? Is there any other cool ideas you guys are spitballing?
Yeah, I mean, so we've got a public space called the Citizens Alley that we've designed, and we're looking to implement sometime over the next couple of years, very likely. So that'll be redeveloping that alley space and putting in infrastructure and amenities that make it easier to have things like a skating rink, or curling or farmer's market. We're going to put some turf back there. There's going to be a bunch of decorative pavement, nods to history. That actually used to be a railroad spur that came up that alley.
Oh, really?
Yeah, historically, there was a rail spur there. So, we're going to try and make a nod to that history, and then redevelop the freight house itself, which is where the butcher shop is at. And there's some storage units in there now. Mm-hmm. We have no desire to have a butcher shop or storage units in downtown. So we're going to redevelop that building to be a pedestrian-centric retail center that would kind of feed out into that alley space.
So the alley space is going to be something you see like in big cities where you can walk down and there's cool places you can sit, that kind of thing.
That's going to be the thing you're going to see right here in Minot. I mean, I don't care what Minneapolis is doing. I don't care. I'm not going to live there. I'm going to live in Minot, and I want this place to be cool.
That's the one thing that I think about Minot, because people always say, "Oh, do you want to move to Denver, Minneapolis, LA, New York?" It's like it's cool to have these different spaces and these unique experiences, but I don't want all the backlash from it. I don't want to live with 1 million people in one block. But it's cool that you can implement these cool experiences, said cool a lot there, experiences into Minot. So it feels like that big city feeling, but you still get the small town feel of Minot too. That's probably my favorite part about it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. That's definitely our vision. We're trying to make this place as awesome as we can while, with the time that we have here, right?
Exactly. Do it for my kids too. That's what
I will.
Yeah, that's
happily.
what I appreciate. So kind of wrapping everything up here, what do you think the most rewarding aspect of being a business owner and a business face in Minot is? What do you enjoy about it the most?
Honestly, the piece that I appreciate the most is developing a high performing, cohesive team of people. I am so blessed to work with so many outstanding, talented individuals, creative individuals. We've got this really wonderful mix of technical and artistic within our organization. Those things, sometimes there can be conflict there, but through our operation, through our building of these teams, we have this sweet synergy that occurs between engineers like me and really creative, architects or interior designers or graphic designers.
Oil and water, right? Sometimes.
It can be. And in the traditional sense, that's typically kind of how it is, engineers will grouse about architects and architects will grouse about engineers. Right. But those silos, those walls are stripped down in the organization, and we've got a very high performing team. And that's, taking a step back and look at it, that's probably the most satisfying thing.
Yeah. So then for the future and the growth, then what's the North Star of Ackerman Estvold? What do you guys want to get to? Just keep expanding? Any like specific dream projects that you want to work on?
Yeah. So, we've got three different, call it strategic directions that we can follow, right? We can try and gain market share, from our competitors in markets that we're currently serving. That's option one. That's quite frankly the least fun option. Yep. Option two is to expand the service areas or to expand the services themselves of what we currently do. So, I talked about adding architecture. This was about 10 years ago when we added that discipline. I mean, that's a complementary discipline to what we do or what we were doing at the time.
Yeah.
Now it's a major part of our business, right? So we can continue to add disciplines to supplement what we're doing. And then we can, choose to grow geographically as well. Like take our current wares, pack up our suitcase and go to, someplace else and try and develop and sell the same thing. So we've got these three different ways that we can grow, but the whole purpose behind it, the whole purpose behind growth is to provide the environment for our people to flourish.
Yeah.
To provide the opportunity for them to achieve their professional goals. That's why we have 11 partners in our firm.
Yeah.
Because everybody has got a growth trajectory, and that growth trajectory is something that we need to find for every person in the organization as well.
Yeah.
And that's finding those people that are passionate about growth, that are passionate about a service that we provide or a part of the country that they want to live in, whatever. Like we can leverage all that passion and all those strengths to make something pretty cool happen. So that's our approach to growth and Ackerman Estvold.
I like that it's people centric, where you want to make sure these people are living a better quality life. As much as you expand and the revenue might go up, really it boils down to how can we make our team's lives better, and then the people that are affected by what we're doing better.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got kind of three philosophies, if you will. Number one, we wish to be the consultant of choice, right? We want people to choose us. We wish to be the employer of choice, right? We want people to come and work with us, but we also wish to be the investment of choice.
Yeah.
For our shareholders, people that are risking some things personally to be a part of what we've got going on. So, using those three things to kind of, guide the direction of our ship is what we do, on a pretty daily basis. So,
no, I like that. So 2 questions left for you here.
Sure.
What is something that you wish you knew now? You wish you knew when you started that you know now, if you could go back and tell yourself 20 years ago?
I should have taken more. I should have had more formal training in communication.
Okay.
And in business. I mean, those are the two things where it was very much on the job, and communication is not my strong suit. It's something that I I have to work really hard to be an effective communicator.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that gets overlooked too. Communication aspect.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, if I was to go back, rewind the clock or whatever, I would have emphasized more of that within my own, training or college or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would have, dumped some of the courses in,
the randomness.
Yeah, I mean, took some classes that design of timber bridges. Like I don't do that. For me, great, got some technical expertise, but it's a waste, right? I should have focused on some of the more soft skills that would have made me a more effective leader.
So you guys expand into timber bridges.
Yeah, well, somebody else can lead that charge. Yeah, that's an opportunity for somebody else.
Yeah,
not me.
And then last question I got for you: Mount Rushmore of business advice. 4 pieces of advice or tips, whatever that you would tell someone that's either just graduating, going into the workforce, or they want to start their own business. 4 pieces of advice. Doesn't have to be anything long or crazy, but I need 4 from you.
4. Okay. Spend time working if you're going to start something, make sure you spend enough time working on the business instead of just working in the business.
Okay.
Right. So take a step back every once in a while, be on the balcony.
Yeah.
And work on your business and on the organizational structure and on systems instead of just pounding out your widgets.
That's one thing that I had to learn probably a year and a half ago. I was always just working in the business. I was like, I'm literally just an employee for myself. Yeah. So I like that one. Yeah.
Second thing would be understand what you're passionate about. Understand, your purpose for being here. And this is a pretty high level thing. Like, what is your purpose in life?
Yeah.
And really dig down into your essence to find out what that is, and then find overlap with what you're doing professionally. We spend more time at work and sleeping than we do doing anything else. So make sure that you're working on stuff that's passionate to you and that strikes a chord with you personally.
Yep.
Third thing, I would say leverage the strengths of your colleagues. And for us, we do a lot of different things, right? We do civil engineering, we do architecture, we do some construction management, we do a lot of things within those disciplines as well. I don't do all of those things.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to leverage, the strengths of your team and of your colleagues and things like that to be able to grow into those and do those effectively. And probably the fourth thing is make sure you're listening to your clients, listen to your customers. At the end of the day, without them, you don't exist.
Yep.
So make sure that you're in tune with what their needs are and ask for critical feedback.
Okay.
That is probably some of the best nuggets that I've gotten is when I talk to a client after we've done a project.
Okay.
And I ask them, how did it go? And they would say, good. So,
not just good. Yeah.
Not just good. Tell me more about things that we could have done better.
Yeah.
And, occasionally we'll get some candid feedback. And that is so important because we, like I said before, a vast majority of our book of business is repeat business from year to year. So the last thing we want to do is have an upset client or customer. So be in tune to what your customer base is needing.
I like those 4. The last one that you mentioned there, I always try to tell myself, treat every client like it's the only client you have. Yeah. If that's the only client you'd have, how hard would you work to keep them happy? Right. So if you can do that with every single client you have, you should be a little bit more successful. Ryan, thank you very much for coming on the show. Where can people find you? Where can they find Ackerman, Estvold, the Aksal Group?
So we have social media presences on all the socials. So if you type in Ackerman Estvold or Aksal, that's AKSAL into the search bar or whatever, you'll find us.
Perfect. And we'll put all those links in the description below for you guys to check them out. Ryan, thank you again very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been great.
That was episode 53 of the Minot Business Podcast. Again, please leave a rating and review if you guys enjoyed the show. We will see you guys next week for episode 54.